Entire dark history of She-Ra and how she got the power by killing He-Man. Princess Adora, the long-lost sister of He-Man who returns to claim the power of Grayskull and becomes She-Ra.
I am She-Ra!
The story of She-Ra, or Adora, is a story of trauma, or of separation, and of not knowing who she truly is. While her original origin story was already bleak and tragic, DC Comics gave it an even darker and tragic twist in He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, published in 2013. This 19-issue series explores more than just the story of Adora. It looks into the despair of a human being when he loses those who hold dear to him, the fire of vengeance and spite, and more lore of the wonderful and fantastical Eternia. We are going to look into Adora's story today, but don't worry, I will also tell you a bit about the other comic arcs. Now let's begin. Forgotten Truths. We begin right where we left off with the previous series. Let me remind you of what happened. Skeletor had usurped the throne and gained access to Castle Grayskull with some help from Orko. To make sure his rule is not interrupted, he had jumbled the memories of Adam, King Randor, and the Masters of the Universe. The Sorceress, who had been held captive by Skeletor, had managed to help Adam and Teela rediscover their memories by projecting her falcon self, Zoar. Skeletor had found out and killed her, but it had been too late. Adam and Teela found their way to each other and then to the Power Sword, with a lot of menaces and obstacles trying and failing to stop them. As soon as Adam had touched the hilt, he knew what words to say, and once he was He-Man again, everyone's memories returned and the Masters reunited to throw Skeletor out. This is where we are beginning. A day or so after King Randor returns to his seat, a funeral is held to honor the life and memory of the Sorceress. During this celebration of life, Duncan shares with Adam who the Sorceress really is, the mother of his daughter, Teela. Duncan remembers her as a firebrand who did not hesitate to get her hands dirty, while Adam only remembers the serene and stoic face of the Sorceress. Duncan believes she hid her private face from the public facade and tells Adam that Teela is a chip off the old block. Adam asks why Duncan has not yet shared the fact that the Sorceress is Teela's mother. Duncan tries to brush it off, reminding Adam that he too had not mentioned that fact to his friend, but when Adam reminds him that it is not his place to tell Teela, Duncan sighs. He had hid the truth from his daughter as the Sorceress could not have attended to Teela as a mother, and he believed that the tale of a loving but dead mother was better to a growing girl than the tale of a mother who abandoned her to serve the kingdom. He blames himself for falling in love with a mage, but he had never stopped loving her. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of Teela, who has dyed her hair bright red. That incites a lot of teasing and jokes from Adam that Teela decides to ignore for the time being. At the funeral, King Randor refers to the Sorceress by her name, Teela Na, as he hopes she finds peace in the afterlife and her essence becomes one with the goddess Zoar. Adam is surprised to learn her real name, while Teela is indifferent, as she hates mages and did not particularly like the Sorceress. The name, however, makes her realize that she is named after the Sorceress, and she demands an explanation from her father. Duncan doesn't need to come up with an excuse this time, though, as it is not the time or place for a discussion. Adam takes another jibe at her hair, and is rewarded with an elbow to his rib. While King Randor drones on and on about the life and memories of Teela Na, far from Eternia in a tiny village, a father teaches his two sons how to sow crops in their field. The trio are interrupted by a loud explosion that sets their field on fire and kills the two boys. The one who sent the explosion is Hordak's servant, a woman who wears the mask of Hordak to do his bidding. She takes delight in their death and notes that the invasion will be easier if everyone is as frail as the farmer and his sons. She orders the death of the farmer who had survived the blast and is mourning the death of his children. The woman, expecting resistance, confirms with her men that she is at the closest insertion point to their target, Eternos. She comes up with a battle plan immediately and updates her master, Hordak. As there has been no resistance yet, even if He-Man and his forces discover now that their kingdom is under attack, it would be impossible to put together a capable resistance. Hordak replies that he envies the woman, whom he calls Despara, as he rarely sits out a quest. He tells her that it is a gift from a loving father to a deserving daughter, and reminds her not to make him regret his generosity. Despara replies by pledging her life to him, but that doesn't impress him as he believes he owns her life. Not exactly a girl dad, this Hordak. Despara tells him that they are gonna mount the attack on Eternos within the hour, to which Hordak warns her not to let her confidence make her careless. Despara doesn't think she is too confident though, as she had found that their technology is not that modern, but Hordak reminds her that they did not require technology as they had powerful magic. Despara brings up the dead mage, and while Hordak thinks that is a disadvantage to their enemies, the real threat to Despara is at the hands of a warrior. Despara doesn't let him explain, as she thinks all warriors are to be taken with concern at times of war. She promises to topple the realm and gift it to her father. You might think that would make Hordak happy, but no. That guy just tells her if she doesn't, he will not spare her his wrath. The poor daughter is taken aback but nods to obey his order. After the funeral, Adam, Teela, Duncan, and Decker walk along the gilded corridors of the palace. Teela complains about the long ceremony and wonders if the mage is really dead, as she could have easily projected her soul to a bird or a rat. Teela then starts stripping to her inner clothes, which can only be explained as the artist's desire to draw her as scantily clad as possible. Cause which woman do you know who undresses for a bath in front of her childhood friend, her father who is also her colleague, and her father's friend? It's also illogical cause her clothes just disappear between panels. Where did she keep them? Anyway, Teela heads to the bath, leaving Duncan an offhanded comment about how it is a good thing that there is one less mage. Afraid his daughter's disregard for the dead sorceress might have offended Decker, Duncan apologizes when suddenly a loud blast throws the men off their feet. They rush into the room and find Teela stuck beneath a cabinet. They free her and see the source of the attack, Despara. She tells her men that those who do not surrender will die and sends them forth. Teela runs off to find her armor, while Adam sends Duncan and Decker to organize the men to put up a layered defense, all while the palace around them begins to crumble. Adam finds an empty balcony and wields the power sword to become He-Man. Down below, Despara's men tell her that the warrior Hordak warned of is close by, as their energy reading device noted an energy signature that is off the charts. Teela joins him shortly after, and the two look down at the evil horde, wondering who they are. The answer comes from behind them, as Despara had climbed up. She tells them that they are her masters and servants should know their place. Using her staff, she sends a blast of energy towards Teela, knocking her off her feet. He-Man slams the sword to the floor, causing the ground to tremble and Despara to fall. Her mask falls off because of it, but she gets up, acknowledging that her father was right to be concerned. He-Man asks who her father is, while Teela eggs him on to kill her. Teela then remembers that He-Man would never hurt a woman if she did not make him bleed first. Despara is impressed by Teela's initiative and tells He-Man that he needs to take her lead. Teela doesn't have time for empty praise though, and she pushes He-Man to kill her by pretending she is a guy. That impresses Despara even more, and she becomes sad that they had met on other sides of a battle, as otherwise they would have been the best of friends. At that moment, Teela looks into the blue eyes of the woman in front of her and remembers her name, Adora. Regroup and remember. Adam demands to know who Adora is, and Teela can only say that until that moment, she used to think that Adora was a figment of her imagination. Right now, with a glowing red staff, Adora is anything but imaginary. Adora, or Despara, recognizes Teela too, but admits she knew her but only as a dream. Teela tries to clarify their relationship, but Despara is not there to play around, and she begins attacking He-Man. Teela jumps to the aid of He-Man when he refuses to attack and only defends himself. Despara asks if their realm's honor allows them to gang up against one warrior, and Teela asks He-Man to stand back. He-Man tries to stop her as Despara is too powerful, but when has Teela ever listened to Adam? Despara commends her spirit and throws her off the balcony and turns to He-Man, who dodges her and jumps off to get Teela. She has maneuvered herself onto a ledge and does not approve of He-Man's stupid decision to jump after her. She suggests landing on one of the Horde members, as that would justify the jump at least. He-Man listens to that advice, but immediately he is joined by Despara. Despara notes that He-Man is either too noble or too foolish to risk his life for a woman who is not his betrothed or wife, but she is not willing to let him live long enough to figure out which. As her attacks get more ferocious, Teela jumps off the ledge and onto Despara, giving He-Man the opportunity to thwack her neck with the hilt of the power sword. The war rages on and Stratos flies by announcing King Randor's orders to withdraw as the Horde is killing civilians to force their surrender. Stratos picks Teela up, who has suffered a nasty ankle twist from her jump, and flies away after asking He-Man to meet them at Castle Grayskull. He-Man asks Despara if they're going to keep killing civilians as long as they fight. Despara thinks that it is all for the glory of the Eminence and there can be no greater honor. He-Man thinks it is madness and sheathes his sword, which confuses Despara. She asks him if he is committing suicide or hoping that Despara will choose to be merciful. It is neither of the two, as He-Man had sensed the arrival of his trusty cat, Cringer. Cringer mauls Despara's face and throws her aside like she is an uninteresting chew toy, as He-Man jumps on him. The two ride their way to Grayskull, slashing and slaying anyone who stands in their way. The deep wounds on Despara's face cover her with blood, and she vows to grind He-Man's bones and force-feed it to his beast. In Castle Grayskull, the surviving members of the Masters of the Universe convene, and Teela is none too happy that one of them is Mekaneck. It's not that she wants him to die, but out of all the useful members, she can't believe she now has to fight alongside a guy who can extend his neck. A healer fixes her ankle and asks her to stay off of it for a few days so that it heals well, but Teela jumps to her feet immediately. Adam asks her to tell them all about her imaginary friend, as that would give them some insight as to who Despara or Adora is. Before she could begin though, King Randor arrives and Teela is grateful for the distraction. King Randor gives them the news with a heavy heart. Eternia has fallen. The enemy had launched simultaneous attacks on every city and town using instantaneous teleportation, a technology that was alien to Eternia. There was a staggering loss of life, and many masters had let themselves be captured to make sure civilian lives were not lost. The merciless and relentless foe has been identified. It is none other than Hordak. The people at Grayskull have a hard time believing that, as they only know Hordak as a mythical creature. Randor assures them that he is real, as he had been almost kidnapped by one of his minions as a child. As Eternia burns, Despara gets updates from their invasion. Her face has more or less healed except for a long gash running across her face. Hordak's minions had destroyed more than half of the planet's agricultural infrastructure, as keeping people hungry ensured their compliance. They also inform her about the gathering of Eternian forces in Castle Grayskull. Despara thinks it is appropriate, as Castle Grayskull, home of King Grayskull, is the place that set the chain of events centuries ago that has led to Hordak's invasion of Eternia. She orders her forces to surround Castle Grayskull to make sure no one gets out, and orders her satellites to focus on the castle. In Castle Grayskull, Randor worries if his subjects and the Masters think he is deluded, but He-Man assures them that they don't believe him but don't harbor such drastic thoughts either. There is some consolation in the fact that Grayskull's enchantment had bound Hordak to the Netherrealm made especially for him, but that did not stop his minions from carrying out his wishes. He-Man finds it hard to believe in the existence of a pan-dimensional vampire who commands an army made of mostly machine men, but Randor reminds him that he lives in a kingdom with a man made of moss who can control plants and a giant green cat he rides on. Makes a lot of sense when you put it that way, doesn't it, He-Man? Randor recalls how Hordak would have kidnapped him if it had not been for Keldor. That shocks He-Man, as he never had known Skeletor to save anyone. It was long before the emergence of Skeletor, though, and Randor tells him that that is a story for another day. Their conversation is interrupted by Teela announcing the arrival of an emissary. The emissary in question is a holographic projection of Despara. She demands to speak to He-Man, not caring that he is not the king. She demands surrender for He-Man if he wants the rest of the survivors to continue living. That offer does not extend to He-Man, though, as she intends to fight him to death. The scar across her face has made it personal for Despara, and she wants to wash it with his blood and butcher the wretched beast that gave her the wound. Despara removes her mask to show the jagged mark left behind and is met with ridicule. Teela pretends to scream in terror while Stratos says the scar brings out the color in her eyes. I would want to butcher everyone too if they said that about my scar, to be honest. He-Man notes the jovial tone of the room and tells her that his people are not interested in a surrender. Despara is indifferent to that, as she thinks they would make arrogant slaves who would die sooner than later. As she disappears, she gives them 12 hours to make peace with whatever gods they worship. He-Man then turns his attention to Teela, demanding to know the tale of the imaginary friend, while King Randor looks onto the spot where Despara once stood and whispers his wife's name, Marlena. The friends we make. Teela did not have a lot of friends growing up, and Duncan was always occupied as man-at-arms to give her enough attention or play with her. She wasn't exactly lonely, but she missed having kids her age around her to do kid stuff. One day, she wandered into the palace gardens and heard the unmistakable giggle of a young girl. Teela followed the noise and found a blonde girl about her age, who today she knows as Despara. Teela tried to talk to her, but she disappeared. Teela thought she had imagined the entire encounter and went about her day till she saw her again a few days later. She was more cautious the next time around and showed Despara her picture book. That earned Despara's trust, and the two sat together in the garden and read the children's books from the royal library. She told Teela that her name was Adora and that she was not allowed to ever leave the gardens, as she would not be able to go back home if she strayed from the gardens. The two soon became each other's secret, but one day Adora did not come, and Teela eventually forgot about her. When she did remember her, she brushed it off as her overactive imagination playing a trick on her. Teela shares the tale with Adam, who just wants to know if she has any information that might help them get an edge, but Teela remembers nothing as such. Mechadek's neck appears by them to warn the forward defense of Despara's army moving towards them. Though they gave Randor a grace period of 12 hours, they had started making preparations for their first assault. He-Man asks Roboto to rally the troops, as they don't know yet how bad the initial barrage is going to be. He-Man does not have to wonder for long though, as a rain of explosives descends on them. Some of them rush inside Grayskull, hoping the castle would weather the attack, when suddenly Despara and her forces arrive. She claims Teela for herself, but asks her soldiers to deal with the rest. He-Man orders Roboto to help the king, but Randor proves why he is king and begins hacking down the soldiers with his axe. While attacking Despara, Teela asks why she did not just blink her entire army inside, but Despara is one who can appreciate the fun in attacking with a small battalion. Teela tells her that if she had known when they were children that Despara was Hordak's, she would have clobbered her with the very book they were reading. Despara corrects her, as no way would Teela attack her friend. Teela has no retort to that and instead switches over to talking about the logistics of Despara's teleportation technology. An attack on Roboto distracts her temporarily, but it gives enough time for Despara to knock her out. Holding her unconscious body, Despara teleports away from Grayskull, leaving He-Man to scream for her in vain. Duncan rushes over, hearing He-Man's cry, and asks what happened to his daughter. He tells him that she is gone, which Duncan finds hard to believe, as his brave daughter would never desert a war. He-Man corrects himself and tells Duncan that she has been abducted. As Despara's soldiers too teleported with her, Roboto concludes her attack was just a misdirection to take Teela. Duncan wonders why He-Man or Randor were not taken, and He-Man tells her that neither of them were friends of Despara. That confuses Duncan, which does not help, as he is already irate, angry, and worried about his missing daughter. He-Man asks him to assess the damage, assuring him that they will get Teela back. Duncan rages out, asking if He-Man has lost his mind, asking him to do anything other than finding Teela, but He-Man reminds him that he is man-at-arms and orders him to see to his charges. That's a jerk move, Adam. As Duncan leaves, Roboto tries to appeal to He-Man's human side, as Duncan is Teela's father, but he argues that Duncan is the general of the guard and a defender of the realm. Roboto does not agree with his outburst, but he doesn't find the right words to say and leaves He-Man. He-Man, for his part, swears to get Teela back on the power of Grayskull. He could have been less of a jerk about it, though. In the Fright Zone in Eternia, the realm that holds Hordak prisoner, Shadow Weaver tells Hordak that Despara took Teela, the friend from her youth. Hordak blames Shadow Weaver's monumental incompetence for that, to which Shadow Weaver quickly adds that she has atoned for that many times. She expresses her concern about Despara's mental state, as she now knows that Teela is real, and Hordak tells her that her concerns express the question that she has failed as a mother, and her raising of Despara was inadequate. Shadow Weaver tries to stand up for herself, as she obeyed Hordak's command and brought up Despara into believing she was one of the Horde. Hordak does not let her continue, as he thinks that Despara is not so diminished that she would ever belong to the Horde. Shadow Weaver had not meant any offense though, and is speaking only from the fear of how Teela might undo years of Shadow Weaver's careful conditioning. This conversation has proved to me why Despara is so messed in the head. She had Hordak as her father, who sees her as above the Horde but constantly doubts her and puts her down, and Shadow Weaver as the mother who conditioned her into obeying them both. Speak of a dysfunctional family. At Grayskull, He-Man blames himself for Teela's abduction, and Randor consoles him as there was not much he could do. He adds that Despara probably did not want to kill Teela, as she could have done that easily when she was knocked out. He-Man wants to go rescue his friend, and though he had not made his plans known, Randor could read his son like a book and forbids it as he is needed more in Eternia. He-Man is not ready to obey, but Randor commands it as the king, causing He-Man to storm off. Stratos comments that it could have gone better, and Randor tells him that if one day Adam is going to be king, he will have to learn the hard lessons now. He-Man finds solace in Cringer. He vents to him about his father's impossible command and asks him if he will join him in committing an act of treason and disobey a royal command. He wonders what the punishment will be, but figures he will soon find out. Suddenly, a disembodied voice speaks out asking him if he is that anxious to throw his life away. Adam commands whoever is speaking to show themselves, to which the voice asks why he does not recognize the voice and whether it has been that long since he last heard it. Realization dawns on He-Man as he recognizes the voice as the Sorceress's. When he expresses surprise on hearing her voice as she is dead, she explains that Grayskull is a cruel master to her. As she had died within the walls of the castle, it had devoured her, and now she would serve Grayskull forever. It was both a curse and a blessing. Adam asks if the abduction of Teela, her daughter, forced the Sorceress's hand. In reply, she shows Adam a glimpse of the future. He-Man holding a bigger sword and fighting Despara's army as they surround him. She tells him that it is a possible destiny of his if he chooses to accept what Grayskull has to appear. The Sorceress then appears in front of him in her Falcon form and tells him that it will take more than He-Man to defeat the new threat, and Grayskull knew this day would come. Saying thus, the Falcon flies deeper into the castle with an unsaid order to follow. He-Man realizes that Duncan had assessed the Sorceress well, as she was not fit to be a mother, but has served Eternia well and hopes her death has not blunted her brilliant mind. The mother comment was not at all required, but Adam seems to be having a jerk streak going about him this whole issue. Anyway, let's move on. Know thyself. Teela and Despara have an intense stare-off. Teela on the floor behind bars, sitting cross-legged, and Despara on her throne. Eventually, Despara gets off her throne, strides towards Teela, and whispers in her ear that she loved her like a sister. Though her words contain the hint of something loving and tender, her face is masked by a frown. She leaves Teela alone, and Teela begins to tear up. In Castle Grayskull, everyone begins to prepare for the imminent war, and Mekaneck keeps an eye out by extending his neck past the boundaries of the castle. Duncan asks him to stop as he might get his neck blown out. Mekaneck does not have a lot of hope in the war and tells Duncan that without a miracle, they will not walk out of the war alive. He asks Duncan if he has received any word on Teela, and Duncan grimly replies that they have not displayed her body yet. Mekaneck rushes to clarify as that is not what he had meant, and Duncan apologizes for his curt reply. He is curious to know why Mekaneck would care about Teela so much, given that she gave him a lot of grief. Mekaneck tells him that he was neither respected nor beloved when he was a kid, because his superhuman ability was considered useless. A lot of his peers bullied him, and Mekaneck became an easy target, but Teela put an end to all that. She declared him her boyfriend and threatened to decimate anyone who would give him grief. Ever since then, Teela was the only one who bullied him. Duncan does not believe Teela could do that, and asks why he still cares about her despite her insults, as he is now a grown man without the need for Teela's protection. Mekaneck tells him that her words were all out of friendship, and that she does not ever mean a word she said against him. That is also the reason Mekaneck thinks she will be alright, because she is his friend. Duncan corrects him that the better reason she will return alright is because she is his daughter. Mekaneck points out that the enemy is loading another barrage. Duncan gets the feeling that they are just amusing themselves by threatening them till the actual order of attack is delivered by Hordak. He is proved wrong immediately though, as explosives are thrown into the castle grounds. Inside the castle, He-Man wonders out loud how many more attacks the castle can withstand, and the Sorceress replies that Grayskull will serve as it always has. When He-Man tells her that her words did not encourage him, she reminds him that she is not there to encourage him. It has been quite some time in the castle, and He-Man is fed up with not receiving a straight answer. So the Sorceress delivers. She tells him that the main villain is Hordak, while his sister is just an instrument. He-Man is shocked and asks the Sorceress to repeat herself. The Sorceress tells him that she is the Taken, Hordak's prize, and her dark, shameful secret. As far as He-Man knows, he has no siblings, and when he tries to confirm the same from the Sorceress, she tells him that she cannot tell him anything more. Before he could insist upon her compliance, his breath is stolen by the scene in front of him. 3 larger-than-life statues placed in a burning hall, and amidst them a stage that holds the fire that serves as the magical heart of Eternia. A bridge connects Adam to the fire, and the Sorceress tells him that he faces the secret of Castle Grayskull. Now that he is in the right place, the Sorceress disappears after telling him that he knows what to do. Unsurprisingly, He-Man does not know what to do, and he desperately calls and screams for Zoar, who is long gone. He curses mages, agreeing with Teela that they are infuriating, and reaches the glorious fire of Eternia. He picks up the hammer kept there, hoping Duncan was with him, as he could understand the intricacies of the words written on it. Soon the words show themselves to He-Man, and the inscription says the words the Sorceress had told him moments ago. It reads, "I am not here to encourage you. I am here to see you are prepared for what lies ahead." Adam grabs his sword and says the magic words that he has the power. In Despara's camp, a prisoner sees Teela frowning in her cell and begins taunting her for looking so sad and woeful. He tells her that he has been there for a long time, so he gets to talk to the fresh meat and tell them what to expect. He tells Teela that she will be broken, and though now she might think she is a warrior, soon she will be nothing more than what she is told to be. Teela fake quivers and pleads with him not to hurt her. The crazy-looking man commends her for learning fast, but she grabs a hold of his hair and tells him that she was feeding him his lines. She then begins ramming his head to the bars of her cell while calling him stupid, bootlicker, and coward. Despara comes to the poor man's aid and pulls him away from Teela's hold. She orders 50 lashes for his carelessness, promising the double of that if his welts are too shallow. She then sits down cross-legged in front of the cell. Teela mirrors her pose and asks her if she wants to keep her as her pet. Despara tells her that she prefers housebroken pets, and Teela quips that she thought she liked her pets medium rare. Teela tries to reason with her and calls her Adora, but Despara grits her teeth as she tells her not to call her that. Teela asks her what she is supposed to call her other than the name she gave Teela herself. Despara tells her that she will soon call her Master. Teela does not take the threat seriously and asks her whether she is hiding something from her, as she does not want to be called Mistress. Despara does not appreciate the lack of respect, and Teela correctly points out that respect is earned. Despara insists that respect is demanded on the grounds that her father is Lord Hordak of the Bleak Dominion. Before she could sing praises of Hordak, Teela expresses her disbelief that Hordak could give birth to a human child, as he is some kind of vampire. Despara explains that he has transcended humanity, but Teela points out the problem with that logic. Hordak is millions of years old and could not be human, as he existed long before the birth of humanity. Despara points out that she, as his child, is a human, and that should speak to Hordak's humanity. Teela simply tells her that she should arrive at a conclusion herself, and asks her what she believes, as Teela still knows that 2 + 2 = 4. This angers Despara so much that she grabs her dagger and shoves it into Teela's belly, as she believes Teela has outlived the value she may have once had. She leaves her to bleed out, declaring that she does not deserve a warrior's death. To prolong her suffering, she asks one of her soldiers to make sure she does not die soon. The war continues on in full swing, with the dangerous and advanced technology of Hordak meeting its match in the magical defense of Eternia. As the war hammers on, so does He-Man, hammering at his blade to make a bigger sword. When He-Man finishes the sword, the words of Grayskull speak to him, telling him that he had to be the one to forge the sword, but Grayskull's hand guided him. Now, He-Man has a new sword, and he can choose to invoke the power and pay the price. Of course, He-Man chooses the power of Grayskull, and is granted a snazzier armor and a huger sword. Meanwhile, the words of Teela echo in Despara over and over again as she begins to doubt what she knows about herself. Is she the daughter of Hordak? Is Hordak a human? If not, what does that make her? She retires to a place away from her soldiers and ponders over these questions. A falcon, that we all know to be Zoar, asks her what she truly believes, and tells her that Hordak should have never sent her back home if he intends to keep her for himself. "Father, Master. The font of Eternia is the core from which all magic flows, and like the magical font is a core to Eternia, Eternia is core to the universe. Eternia is covered by an enchantment that forbids the use of this magic by anyone who is not Eternian. 1,000 years ago, Lord Hordak had pierced this veil and overrun Eternia with his horde. That would have been the end of it, but King Grayskull wrought a sword that would channel the power of the font and used it to defeat Hordak. He was then banished to Despondos, a bleak universe where his physical form died. His spirit form, covered in hatred and bile, obliterated all hope from Despondos and recreated it in his image. He became one with Despondos and Eternia. Eternia's dark mirror in the dark world became his home. The people there recognized Hordak as their lord. Despara tells all this to Teela with threats of sewing up her jaw if she yawns again, but she ought to give her a break. The poor woman is on the floor, bleeding out, and she has to hear Despara drone out a history lesson. She tells Teela that is why resistance is futile, and asks her why they resist. Teela, from her head pressed weakly against the floor, whispers something out. Unable to hear it, Despara kneels outside the cell and pushes her ear towards Teela. Teela tells her that she had bet the night guard 50 gold pieces that she would get Despara on her knees in front of her. Despara storms off, but I can't help but be impressed by Teela. Though Despara puts on a brave face, she is overcome by doubts. She wonders who the bigger fool is, Teela for resisting her or Despara for trying to connect and justify herself to her. Teela's words keep swirling in her head and she remembers the conversation she had with Zoar. The Falcon had told her to truly listen to her own words and know the truth of the matter before disappearing. She regrets not gutting the bird when she had the chance. So she replays the story of Hordak, wondering if his physical body had really withered and died. He-Man jumps into battle with his new armor and sword. His shiny new goodies answer enough to Duncan, who had been wondering where He-Man had disappeared to. Within moments of joining the battle, the army of Despara begins to pull back, causing He-Man to worry, as he knows Despara is not the kind to pull back when they have a good chance at winning. He doesn't have time to mull that over, though, and quickly updates Duncan and Randor about everything that has happened. Zoar, the Sorceress, being alive, finding the Forge of Grayskull, and getting himself a new sword and armor. He tells Randor that once he returns from rescuing Teela, he needs to know more about his sister. Randor assures him that he has no sibling, but He-Man had heard Randor whispering Marlena's name when he first saw Despara. Randor tells him that she is a mirror image of He-Man's mother, and looks exactly like Marlena did on the day Randor met her. He-Man cannot spare more time, though, and asks his father to answer more questions once he is back. Duncan requests him to bring back his daughter alive, and Randor tells him to bring his daughter back too, but only if she is his daughter. He-Man is not the only one bothered with the excess questions in his head. Despara, unable to hold onto her sanity any longer, heads to Etheria. When she greets her mother, she asks her if she has lost her senses, as her father made it clear she could not return till Eternia is decimated. Despara grabs Shadow Weaver by her throat and demands to know about her childhood, about a mother's love, and a father's pride, about the truth. When Shadow Weaver insists that Despara knows nothing but the truth, Despara throws her across the room. In great sadness, Shadow Weaver tells her that she grew suspicious too soon, as if it had been after Eternia was buried. She would not have anywhere to go. She tells her that her brother and her father do not care, as they do not even suspect the truth, but she can't be sure about her father, as it would have been impossible for him to not notice the similarities Despara has with her mother. Despara is confused by the witch's words and tells her that she looks nothing like her. Shadow Weaver changes topics, telling her that she has loved her before like a mother, and she can still choose to do so. Despara is surprised Shadow Weaver admitted to not being her mother so quickly, as she had expected her to cling on to the lie for long. Shadow Weaver saw no sense in that, as she believed to have lost her daughter when Hordak sent her to Eternia, where the truth was waiting for her. Hordak's own arrogance would now be his undoing. Despara repeats her question, who is she? And finally receives the answer. She is Adora, Princess of Eternia. That title is meaningless according to Shadow Weaver, as she had observed that the throne was always her twin brother's to claim, and Eternia only considered queens to be the ornaments that dangle from a king's arm. Shadow Weaver then begins the tale of Adora. She was born as the twin sister of Adam and daughter to King Randor and Queen Marlena. Randor had a brother called Keldor who was insignificant and at best a footnote in the history of Eternia. Keldor sold his soul to Hordak to get unmatched power and became the spectacular Skeletor. Along with his soul, Keldor needed to give Hordak something else, Randor's children. Skeletor had only just picked up Adora when the Sorceress intervened. She was a smart mage and had figured Hordak would target the babies as she would do the same if she was in his position. Hordak was scared of the prophecy of Grayskull that stated that a child would grow up to wield the Sword of Power. The Sorceress fought Skeletor, but had to stop when he used baby Adora as a human shield. She was committed to serving the kingdom, and it did not matter to her what baby survived, as either one would be capable of fulfilling the prophecy. Shadow Weaver always believed that the Sorceress let Adora be kidnapped in order to save Adam, a sacrifice for the greater good. If she had let the battle continue, either one of them or both of them would have been killed. The story bothers Despara, and she closes her eyes, asking her father to let her know that Shadow Weaver is lying. Hordak appears with a flash, knocking down Despara with his foot, and demands to know the audacity which pushed the weapon to question the wielder. He demands to know who she is to question Hordak after she asks for the truth and got it from her foolish mother. She looks up at Hordak with fear and uncertainty and asks if her entire life is a lie. Hordak takes a minute to glare at her, half out of an unidentified concern and half out of anger, and tells her that he recast her soul in his image. He calls her his thrall and without remorse tells her that her life has been exactly as he had decreed it to be. As Despara lets out a shocked "No!", Hordak asks her if she would not have moved heaven and hell to find her children if she had been in Randor or Marlena's place, but that is not what her parents had done. They had not even bothered to remember her name, knowing her only as a sacrifice. Shadow Weaver interrupts him and tells her that the Sorceress knew the king would stop at nothing to get his child back. She knew that he would demand war immediately, and end up losing as they were ill-prepared, so she had made the entirety of Eternia forget the existence of Adora. Overcome with motherly love, Shadow Weaver tells Despara, or Adora, that she is her mother for once and forever, and zaps her out of Etheria to claim whatever future will have her. As she is transported back to Eternia, she remembers her as a child, sitting on Shadow Weaver's lap and listening to her mother's words. Shadow Weaver would let her play with Teela in the imaginary world as a reward for being a good girl. The memory brings tears to her eyes as she realizes that she had not grown up without love. Despara rushes to rescue Teela when an image of Shadow Weaver appears in front of her. She gets decimated right in front of her, and Hordak's voice asks her to look and learn as he expects a lot from his daughter. That night, He-Man heads into Despara's camp without a solid plan to rescue his sister. Mechanic tags along. He-Man had no intention of bringing him along, but on his way out, he had tripped on Mechanic, who was sleeping in between the tents, as enclosed spaces give him the heebie-jeebies. Mechanic tries to get He-Man to consider, but his stubbornness is not anything less than Teela's. While this is happening, Teela wakes up in a tent, finally healed of the deep wound Despara gave her, and finds Despara sitting by her bed. As soon as she gets the energy to sit up, Teela lobs a punch to Despara. In an attempt to make things right, Despara hands her the dagger. Teela is shocked, but Despara quickly fills her in on the truth she only just found out. Teela asks her if she is the one who healed her, and when Despara confirms, Teela stabs her. Now that they are even, Despara realizes that it would be the continuation of a rather beautiful friendship. A rescue of some kind. He-Man and Mechanic are welcomed with a barrage of attacks by Despara's army. They are hopelessly outnumbered, and the only bright side Mechanic can see in their dire situation is that the fight is keeping the soldiers away from Grayskull. Mechanic declares the rescue is a sucky one, and adds that Teela would add some more adjectives while describing the situation. While this is going on, Despara and Teela have made up, and Teela has healed the ugly scar on Despara's face. They knock out her guard, and Teela asks her what is going to happen next. Despara tells her that she will fight and die for what she believes in, and for now, that is Teela. Teela says that it's too much responsibility, but for Despara, or Adora as that name would seem appropriate now, the only thing in her life that was true from the beginning is Teela. Hordak hears the confession and appears, mocking her for thinking he would ever be unprepared for the inevitable. He tells her that the only reason she is still alive is because Hordak is an unforgiving god. Teela asks for a mirror so she can see if they look stupid enough to believe that. Referring to Adora as meat, Hordak asks her who is the one that he absolutely loathes and the one that stokes his wrath. Adora answers that it is the dead king Grayskull. Hordak does not consider him dead as he still lives on through his bloodline, and nothing is more pleasing to Hordak in learning that a descendant of Grayskull served his greatest foe and conquered Eternia for his greatest foe. Teela retorts that it is not over yet, but Hordak continues, not paying any attention to Teela. He tells Adora that Despara will be the name the realm will know and curse for their misery. He blames her for killing Grayskull's legacy and besmirching his name by siding with his arch-nemesis. Teela warns Hordak that she will not let him get Adora, but Hordak asks her to take the trash out if she wants, as he no longer has any use for her. He-Man and Mekaneck made it to Hordak, and he tells them that it is too late as Eternia is already his. Seeing Mekaneck, Teela rolls her eyes and wonders why it had to be him. Hordak explains how his master plan worked. The siege of Castle Grayskull had been just a charade to occupy the best and brightest of Eternia, while the Horde tightened its hold on the rest of the world. Masters of the universe were so concerned with Castle Grayskull that they remained oblivious to what was happening in the rest of Eternia. He accuses them of never thinking past Grayskull and asks He-Man when was the last time he visited any place in Eternia that did not have a crisis. He blames He-Man for having hubris that rivaled Hordak, but at least Hordak is self-aware. In his twisted mind, Hordak thinks he did He-Man and the Masters a favor by getting rid of Eternia, as all they care about is Grayskull. He-Man, who clearly did not get the point, tells him that it is not over and that as long as any one of the Masters lives, he will never take Grayskull. To He-Man's horror, Hordak tells him that he already took it and has relieved He-Man of the burden of Grayskull. As he orders He-Man to bow to his master, Castle Grayskull crumbles down. This is the massive price He-Man has to pay for his own arrogance. Now, the Fright Zone's terrible influence will take over Eternia, and He-Man has no one but himself to blame. He-Man tells him that they might have lost the battle, but they will win the war. The sword He-Man wields once banished Hordak, and it will banish him once more. Hordak does not fear that threat though, and orders his men to kill them all before disappearing. As the army circles them, He-Man asks Cringer to escape as they will meet again at Point Dread. The first rule of Man-at-Arms is to always have a plan, and his star pupil Adam had followed this rule. An aircraft flies over them just in time and throws them a rope so they can climb aboard and escape. At Point Dread, Adam meets a desolate King Randor. Only a handful of members of the Masters of the Universe had survived, and Randor blames himself for not being able to save his people. He-Man consoles him, saying he led the survivors to safety, and because of him, they will live to fight another day. Randor stresses on reclaiming Grayskull somehow. He-Man doubts whether Grayskull's secrets have survived the demolition, and even if they did, whether they are safe from Hordak. Randor tries to find solace in the fact that Skeletor could not access them when he claimed Grayskull, but He-Man reminds him that Hordak is not Skeletor. For now, all they have to depend on is the reforged Sword of Power and the faith that Grayskull will always persevere. Randor asks him about Despara, his long-lost daughter, and He-Man tells him that she is not yet ready to meet Randor, as she has a lot of issues to work out. Randor assumes she blames him, but He-Man clarifies that Adora blames herself. Randor thinks she is wrong to do that as she was misled like the rest of them. Adam offers to have her brought in against her will, but Randor does not want to meet Adora for the first time while she is on her knees. Out of concern, he asks her what she will do now. Adam replies that for the first time in life, she will do whatever she wants to, and the good news is that she has withdrawn her oath to kill Adam. Randor then asks about Teela, to which Adam replies that he would not trade places with Duncan if he had the plague, and Duncan was the cure. Poor Duncan is met with a line of questioning by Teela, as she deserves to know about her mother. Duncan tries to avoid the questions by switching the topic to Despara, but Teela sees right through the ruse. Fisto and Mekaneck see the father-daughter conversation unfurling from a distance, and Fisto hopes he is a fly on the wall, and Duncan reveals to her that she has been betrothed to Adam. Stratos joins them and tells them that they have to start moving to somewhere safer. Fisto agrees and worries about the dark days they will have to face till they get back Castle Grayskull. Adora, having moved to a quieter, abandoned place, sits down on the jagged surface of the planet and allows her mind to rest for a while. Her red cape flies in the wind, and she smiles when she hears a familiar growl. She greets Cringer, glad that he survived the ordeal, and is shocked that he has had a change of heart after learning that his master is her brother. The cat nuzzles into Adora's neck. She realizes the tiger wants to give her company, and tells him that his place is with He-Man, and Adora is yet to find her place. She promises to tell Cringer first as soon as she finds out what her place is in the world. She tells him that she has some unfinished business to see, and leaves. In Etheria, Hordak feels a sense of loss and melancholy. He wonders why, as he should be celebrating his glorious victory over Eternia, and asks himself if it is because of losing Adora. He does not allow that thought to be in his mind for more than a minute, as she was just a pawn in his game. The melancholy persists through, and Hordak wonders why. In the end, we are shown a glimpse of Teela and Adora's childhood when they both peered into a picture book, wondering if they are the bestest of friends, as shown in one of the pictures. Nearby, the Sorceress watches on in the form of Zoar. While Adora is gone. I know this video is about Adora or She-Ra, but now that she is off to discover herself, there is a lot that transpires that adds to the wondrous lore of He-Man. If you clicked on this video to only see She-Ra, feel free to skip this segment, but if you are interested in knowing more about Eternia, stick with me. It will be super quick though, as I too am desperate to get back to Adora's story. He-Man and Teela get isekai'd into the DC universe where Skeletor, having paired up with Orko, wreaks havoc. You'll have to read DC Universe versus the Masters of the Universe to find out more about that. Meanwhile, Randor rallies his army to attack the enemy at Sarnscepter, the place that used to be a marvelous market. Grizzlor, the leader of the army there, is shocked to see such brilliant battle tactics from Randor and considers it a privilege to fight and kill him. He replies with battle plans of his own, and the two armies fight brutally. When Randor begins to gain an upper hand, Grizzlor's men suggest using the orbital disruptor, a dangerous device, but Grizzlor wants to use skilled warfare to defeat Randor as a sign of respect. So he sends more battalions to Randor. Randor, though scared about losing, continues on with grit and resolve. Thankfully, he gets some help as He-Man and Teela return from their DC adventure. They are updated that they are fighting against the Horde, and that info is all they need. Grizzlor realizes that He-Man's arrival poses more of a challenge now, and Hordak commands him to use the orbital disruptor. Grizzlor is hesitant to do that and asks Hordak to trust his skills, but Hordak tells him that he wants to be served by obedient soldiers. The plasma generators are activated, and the powerful blast of the device knocks out everyone and takes out a majority of what remained of Randor's army. As He-Man tries to gain consciousness again, he is visited by Zodak's cosmic form, bedecked with the stars. He advises Adam to take the new challenge that will be offered to him soon, an indirect way of getting rid of Hordak. With that, Zodak disappears and Stratos leads him to the rest of the survivors, Teela, Cringer, and Randor. Realizing that they are witnessing the darkest day in the history of Eternia, Randor believes he has failed as a king. All his subjects are either lost, scattered, or dead. The only plan Randor has is a dangerous one. He wants to bring back the dead Sorceress by defying the laws of the universe. They head to Mount Zoar to request the goddess to bring back the Sorceress. The group is attacked by a bunch of soldiers trying to capture them, but they fight them away with the help of Mossman, also known as Great Woodlord Kriatat Narash. Once Mossman gets rid of the soldiers, he takes them deeper into the forest and asks them why they have been heading to Zoar. Randor explains that Goddess Zoar has been called by many names. The most prominent of them is the Starseed, indicating that she is the life force of Eternia. Castle Grayskull had a way to reach the Eternal Fires, but since it is now under Hordak, he has to take the winding path that leads to the beginning of time and the face of Zoar herself to bring back the Sorceress. Mossman does not approve of the plan at all, as not only is it forbidden to walk the path he is talking about, he risks undoing the fundamental bonds of the universe with his wish. Randor asks him to join them as he knows the doubts of his companions, but believes once they are at Mount Zoar, their mind will change. Mount Zoar is on the terminator between the light and dark hemispheres of Eternia. They enter the walls of the temple in the mountain, and Randor translates the inscriptions for his group. Zoar is the Starseed, and she lives at the heart of the rings of the underworld known as Subternia. She has existed since the beginning of time, and long before man existed, she was worshipped by the first ones, aka the Snake Men. They worshipped her as Serpos. Their empire rose and fell long before men existed. Since Zoar is a presence, a life force who created the Sword of Power, and she is what binds Eternia to the infinite. When the Sorceress died, she became one with the goddess, so only the goddess has the power to recreate the Sorceress. Teela doubts the mythos, while Mossman does not agree with the plan as he sees it as Randor toying with the forbidden. So, Randor shows him an inscription by the ancient Council of Elders that narrates the story of a mighty warrior who traverses Subternia to heal the surface world after the death of a sorceress. Randor thinks that it is another prophecy relating to Adam. Adam agrees to go along with Randor's plan as he remembers Zodak's words to him. When Adam shares his interaction with Zodak, Mossman is convinced as well, and they begin their journey. Subternia is made of 6 rings or circles. They are dreams, earth, sky, war, death, and eternity in that order. The group will have to travel through each one to meet the goddess. The first door opens at Mount Zoar when He-Man calls upon the power of Grayskull with his sword. Teela does not think the Circle of Dreams is going to be that bad, but thanks to the state of the surface world, the dreams have become nightmares. They are attacked by a variety of nightmarish creatures which they fight off valiantly. Unfortunately, 3 gigantic leech heads swallow Stratos, Teela, and Mossman whole. He-Man chops off the creature and searches for them in its stomach, but does not find them as the creature's stomach acts as a portal to the next world, the Circle of Earth. Just like dreams have become nightmares, Earth has become a barren wasteland with no life force or vitality. This is fatal to Mossman, who needs healthy natural flora and fauna to survive. Mossman believes he is dying and tells Teela that Zoar is unforgiving, as she had let her first worshippers, the Snake Men, perish without paying any heed to their prayers. Meanwhile, He-Man and Randor fight on in the Circle of Dreams and find the door to the next realm, but are unable to open the door. Suddenly, they get help from an aircraft shooting down the Beasts of Nightmares. They rescue Randor, Cringer, and He-Man and tell him about how Stratos found the Circle of Sky that connects all the 6 rings of the underworld. The Circle of Sky also housed the lost aircrafts of Endless Worlds, and Stratos nicked one of them to rescue his friends. Randor asks Stratos to rest as he has been at it for a while and takes over driving the aircraft. Randor drives straight into an approaching storm despite repeated requests and warnings from Stratos and Adam. The craft crash lands in the Ring of Death, which is now the home for the Snake Men. Adam tries to find his father first before facing the Snake Men, and while he and Stratos dig around in the crash, Randor appears in front of them with abnormally red eyes and snakes sprouting out from his hands. He declares that King Randor is no more and hasn't been there for a long time, as there is only King Hiss, the ancient lord of the Snake Men. Some King Hiss business. Randor was just a mask to him, as he intended to take over the surface world and rule once again. King Hiss had managed to look upon the face of Zoar and had been the only survivor of the brutal pilgrimage. Since then, he had schemed for a way to revive his men and rule Eternia. Adam attacks him, demanding to know where his father is, but King Hiss tells him that Randor's gone and Adam will never know how long he took over his flesh. A question will always plague his mind every time he thinks of his father as to whether it was really his father or King Hiss. Adam fights Hiss with reckless abandon, but the laws of mortality are different in the Circle of Death. This means that every one of the Snake Men killed by Teela, Stratos, and Mossman would spring back each time. Hiss reveals that He-Man is the key to the Starseed, and he intends to use him to revive his people. Randor's request to ask the goddess to revive the Sorceress had just been a ploy by Hiss to get them to the underworld. Snake Men begin to descend on Teela, and He-Man gets distracted by his worry about her. King Hiss uses the opportunity to knock him out and capture him. Now that they had what they wanted, the Snake Men abandon their attack on Teela and her friends and head to the gate, giving Teela a moment to grieve the death of Randor. Hiss presents Adam's unconscious body in front of the gate, and it opens up to the next and final realm, Eternity. Inside the realm, there is a huge burning sun and a bridge leading them to it. Hiss asks his men to cast Adam into the burning fire of the Mother Goddess so that he may claim the power. Teela, Mossman, and Stratos try to come up with a plan, but Mossman knows that all is lost. Teela cannot take that and decides to go with the only plan she currently has: fight Snake Men until she saves Adam. Meanwhile, Adam wakes up and begins fighting too, but without his sword, he cannot do much as he is outnumbered. King Hiss sends a blistering blast of energy towards Adam and he falls down in pain, his skin burnt and wounded at places. As soon as Teela realizes that Adam will be thrown into the Starseed, she asks Stratos to take her to Hiss. Stratos picks her up, flies over the army of Snake Men, and drops her right in front of Hiss. She picks up her sword to hit him, but Hiss flicks her away with his staff like she is nothing but a bug, and Teela is thrown into the Starseed, much to the horror of her friends. Inside the Starseed, Teela is greeted by her mother, who tells her that her greatest regret is not being a mother to Teela. She tells Teela about the glory of the goddess and how the Sorceress is the mouthpiece of the goddess. Since Teela Na is no more, she asks her daughter if she is ready to sacrifice her life and take her mother's place. Teela accepts, and she comes out the starseed as the Sorceress of Serpos. She commands Hiss and his men to bow to her. King Hiss rushes at her to destroy her and is met with a powerful punch by the rejuvenated Adam. King Hiss falls off the bridge and into the void that surrounds them, while the snake men bow to the new sorceress. Stratos celebrates the fact that their prayers have been answered as they have a new sorceress now. Teela gives He-Man new armor and tells him that they can now turn the tide on Hordak, as she now commands the army of snake men. She crowns him the new king of Eternia, but Adam refuses to wear the crown till Hordak and the Horde is banished from Eternia. He is happy that they can now claim Eternia, but is sad that he lost his father. Now, back to Adora. While all this was going on, Adora was discovering herself in the peaceful places of Eternia, where the Horde was yet to spread its malign influence. Her hair had grown till her shoulders, and she traveled alone. Now she decides to head back, and on her way she finds a tired old woman. She shares her water with the old woman and asks her to keep the water bottle, as her journey is not that long anymore. The old woman wishes good luck to Adora and a warning to beware the future, as her tongue grows serpentine. 1,000 years ago, when Hordak had attacked for the first time, King Grayskull had shoved his power sword into his body and banished him and his horde to Despondos. I know I told you that in the beginning, but I figured I would tell you again since it has been a while. Grayskull celebrated the victory with a month of feasting. Present in the celebration was Sage Adi, the most trusted of Grayskull's Council of Elders, who belonged to the race of the Gars from the island of Anwat Gar. He wasn't the only trusted Gar in the court, as Grayskull trusted his handmaiden Saryn a lot too. Grayskull's wife, Queen Vina, High Priestess of Zoar, did not take part in the celebrations as enthusiastically, as she kept thinking of the vision she had that she had not yet shared with her husband. Meanwhile, Adi plotted something sinister with his fellow Gars. Vina pulled Grayskull out of the celebrations to tell him that she had seen a prophecy that warned of a future where two of his own blood would be at war. One would bring destruction while the other would fight him. Grayskull consoled his worried wife, and she decided to request the goddess to show her more of what's to come. Unknown to them, Adi had convinced Saryn to kill Grayskull by telling her that the power of the sword corrupted him, and he or his heir would lead Eternia to eternal damnation. He also told her that though she is currently the only one of her siblings without a child, the queen had foreseen a future where she would bear the child that would be the savior of Eternia. Adi handed her a sword with a curved blade and told her that she needed to kill Grayskull, at least for her future child. You might think Adi is a backstabbing prick, but it is not actually Adi, and it is King Hiss impersonating him. That night, when all of Eternia had gone to bed, tired from all the whining and dining, Adi rang the bell to alert the Gar army. They attacked without mercy and killed anyone who stood in their way. They burnt down the houses of Eternia and captured Vina. Teela Na, who was just a young girl in Vina's service then, had tried to save her but was commanded by the queen to run away and save herself. Saryn had kept the king unaware of what was going on by giving him copious amounts of wine. She had also mixed a potent drug in his drink that paralyzed him completely. As Grayskull noticed the fires burning in his kingdom, he asked the girl he loved as a daughter whether she drugged him. Saryn, in tears, told him to close his eyes and slit his throat. She had run all the way back to Anwat Gar, with a monster chasing her and her arms covered with the blood of Grayskull. 1,000 years later, Adora awakes from a nightmare of running in the forest while covered in blood. She now stays in a quiet part of the mountains of Thalu with no one but the animals to keep her company. She looks at the map she has seen time and time again, a map of Anwat Gar. She does not know how she got the map, nor does she know why, but that is one of her most valued possessions along with her Hordak mask. She wonders if the map shows her the way to redemption or the way to doom, and thinks it is doom as she does not deserve anything less. The arrival of someone puts her on guard immediately, and she pulls out her sword, ready for whatever is going to attack her. To her surprise, it is Adam and Cringer. Adora refers to him as He-Man, but Adam wants his sister to call him Adam. Adora rushes to pet Cringer, teasingly accusing the cat of revealing her hidden spot. Adora is not that happy to see Adam though, as she had made it clear that she wanted to be left alone. Adam reminds her that he is not one of the people of Eternia who think she belongs in a prison, and gives her the grave news that their father is dead. Adora tells him that she is sorry for his loss, but she cannot grieve for a father she never knew. Despite that, a sadness overtakes her, and she asks Adam how he died. Adam tells her about King Hiss and the army of snake men currently helping them. Since their father is dead and their mother is not in the same universe as them, he tells her that the duty to lead Eternia falls on him and his sister. Adora refuses to join him, as though she has vowed to fight Hordak till her dying breath, it has to be on her cause and her terms. Besides, she does not think the people of Eternia will accept her as their princess, as she destroyed Grayskull's legacy as Despara. She also reminds him that she was the sacrifice the sorceress made to make sure Adam fulfilled the prophecy and was abandoned and unloved by her own family. He-Man sympathized with her and gave her a locket containing the picture of their mother. He hoped it would give her strength during this difficult time and remind her that they are bound by blood. They only have each other now. Adora takes the locket but tells him that he cannot ask her to do this. Adam tells her that Teela has ascended to become the new sorceress, and she knows about her dreams and decision about Anwat Gar. Hearing about Teela, Adora throws her hands up that the war is now gone. Only a true friend would react that way. Adam continues on and tells her that Anwat Gar has been forbidden ever since the Gars killed Grayskull in a coup. Adam is not there to stop her, but to accompany her. Adora refuses to let him join her, but a projection of the sorceress talks to her. She reminds her that Adora told her Teela was the only real thing in her life, so she requests her to trust her now. Adam and Teela just want to show Adora that she is loved, and that is why Adam wants to accompany her. She disappears after saying that, and Adam hands her Teela's gift, a green sword with a curved blade, the very same sword Saryn once wielded. Adora is delighted with the weapon, as it is a masterpiece and perfectly balanced. She appreciates Adam's company too, but does not believe she deserves it, as she has a lot of demons she has to slay. Adam tells her that the most powerful thing the demons fear is family. The two siblings set out, destroying the Horde patrol they meet on the way. After meeting 3 patrols, Adam suggests switching paths by stealing a boat from the Horde-controlled Ultimatum. Hordak's fright zone had made its mark on Ultimatum, and Eternians were being enslaved there. A friend for Adora. Adam and Adora wait till nightfall to slip into Ultimatum. When Adam admits he has no idea what the Fright Zone does, Adora explains. Hordak would feed on the fear of the people he conquered, and the fear is what allowed his Fright Zone to take root. Once it takes root, the zone would spread like a cancer of shadow and darkness. As the siblings infiltrate the port, they come across imprisoned people and animals whose fear fueled the port. Adam suggests getting them out, but Adora suggests against it, as it would blow their cover. She too is distracted by a pitiful unicorn in the cages, but she knows that they need to pick their battles. Realizing that what they may find in Anwar Gat will probably help them win the war, Adam decides to postpone his plan. As they sneak around, Adam insists on knowing what Hordak does with the prisoners. Adora hesitates at first, but lets him know that Hordak feeds on their souls to increase his power. Adam accuses Adora of being in awe of Hordak, but Adora justifies it, as she thinks that he plays an ugly but important role in the natural course of the cosmos. Adam has heard enough though, and he decides to free the people after all. As Adam calls upon the power of Grayskull, Adora is dazzled by his power, but snaps out of her shock to listen to his command of freeing the prisoners. She frees all the people and animals, even the beautiful unicorn she befriended earlier. The now free Eternian cheer for their king, but Adam asks them to stop and run for safety, as they are not yet free, not while Hordak still has a stronghold on Eternia. He asks his cat to lead the people to safety. Adora takes in the destruction they left on the port, and Adam apologizes for not sticking to the plan. He tries to explain himself to her, but Adora holds his hand and tells him that she already understands. Just as the siblings were sharing a moment of tenderness, Adam's sword begins to glow and the ground underneath them splits. Hordak's corruption penetrated the land itself, and Ultimatum, under Hordak's command, is trying to kill them. The two lose their balance and barely hold on from falling to the depths of the planet when suddenly help comes in the form of the rainbow-winged unicorn, Adora's new friend. Adam recognizes that Adora has a way with animals, and as they fly away, the sorceress appears on the horizon to tell them that Anwat Gar is waiting for them. She also warns them that the Forbidden Island will most definitely test them in ways they cannot even imagine. A land of secrets to be discovered. The unicorn, which Adora names Swiftwind, drops them on Anwat Gar, but is spooked. He is not the only one, as Adam too feels a sense of dread as they approach the Forbidden Island. As they walk inside, they discover crumbling mountains and temples. Adora finds it tragic, as Hordak's invasion briefings had listed the Gars as a proud and mighty civilization. Adam explains that the island had been ostracized from the entire planet after a Gar killed Grayskull. Adora does not see the sense in that and asks why so so many people should suffer for the actions of few. Adam says that they should not and that it is wrong, and hearing that, the people of Gar surround him, surprised to hear sympathy from someone belonging to the bloodline of Grayskull. The Gars reveal that they were around since the arrival of the siblings but hid in the shadow. Their sudden appearance scares Swiftwind and he bolts towards the woods. Adora runs after him, promising to return soon. The Gars tell Adam that she should not have gone into the woods as a witch lives there who eats children and takes away the sanity of whoever dares to enter the forest. Quite an early warning from the Gars. Adam decides to follow his sister, but the Gars stop him as their warriors would have a better chance at finding her. Adam agrees to wait for an hour, and if the Gars were not successful in that time, he would head into the woods himself. The Gars lead him into a hall, and Adam asks the names of the people there. None of the Gars had any names as they considered themselves a ghost people. They ask him if he is there to avenge his ancestor and sigh in relief when he says no. Adam accepts a drink from them and tells them that the reason he is there is because a trusted friend of his said salvation is to be found on the island. However, upon his arrival, another thing was clear to Adam. The Gars had suffered long enough for something that many of them were not involved in, so he declares it is time to overturn the law that forbids contact with them. Meanwhile, Adora follows Swiftwind deeper and deeper into the forest. She begins to hear whispers but continues on, shrugging them off as figments of her imagination. She finally catches up to the unicorn and promises to lead him out, when suddenly the whispers become crystal clear. Adora draws her sword and the disembodied voice asks for her to leave as it belongs to her. She orders the voice to show herself, and suddenly the air in front of her begins to materialize into King Grayskull. He looks exactly as he did at the moment of his death. His eyes are aglow and his neck is still wet from the blood flowing out of his throat. The spirit of Grayskull points at the sword, and when Adora looks at it, it is covered in blood. When she looks up again, Grayskull is gone and her sword is back to normal. The 1 hour interval up, Adam gets up to go look for Adora, but the Gars let him know that their men found Adora and she is waiting for him at the temple. He heads to the temple to meet her. Inside the temple, it is not Adora but Triclops who meets him. Adam reaches to pull out his sword, but his muscles fail him and he topples backward. Triclops tells him that the Gar recipe for a paralytic is most effective and what was used years ago to kill Grayskull. Though he has been paralyzed, Adam tries to ask Triclops what he wants. Triclops thinks it is obvious as he is a bounty hunter and has been paid well by Hordak to get him Adam's blood. Triclops is anything if not efficient and had tracked Adam for days. He had reached the island ahead of him and struck a deal with the Gars. In exchange for giving Triclops Adam, they were getting a seat at the table under Hordak's rule. The people could hardly refuse an opportunity to get out of exile and finally get back to light. Adora reaches the temple just in time and tells Triclops that Hordak can have the blood of He-Man if that is what he wants. Before Adam can even form the word no, Adora strides over to him and slits his throat. Despara or Adora or Triclops is impressed and surprised with the attack as Adora nearly severed his neck with the blade. Within seconds, He-Man bleeds to death. Adora reminds him that she knows what she is doing and asks why Triclops is surprised. Triclops tells her he is surprised because of her action, just like He-Man, who was probably expecting to die in some famous battle at the hands of a terrible foe. That was the valiant death a warrior of his stature was probably hoping for, and not to be butchered like a pig by his own sister. Triclops is impressed by her deceit and ruthlessness as he realizes she has been working for Hordak all along. Adora refuses to abandon who she is and who she was raised to be. Triclops is not there for her. All he wants is to get He-Man's blood and secure that bag, so he collects the blood in a small vial and leaves after suggesting Adora to leave as soon as possible, as the fright zone would soon engulf the wretched island. Adora asks him to tell Hordak that Despara serves at the pleasure of Hordak. The Gar people begin to worry, hearing Triclops' words as Hordak had promised to spare them if they betrayed He-Man. Adora simply tells them that they are fools and Hordak does not honor the deals he made with fools. As the fright zone advances, the Gars run deeper into the island in horror. When Adora walks back to He-Man's body, she comes to her senses. She sees He-Man dead and wonders why he is not breathing. Her eyes slowly follow the blood trail to her sword and she is utterly horrified that she was the one who killed her brother. Holding the sword, she runs into the forest, screaming for the Sorceress, screaming for help, screaming for someone to undo what happened. When her desperate pleas are not heard, she presses the blade of her sword to her chest. The Sorceress suddenly appears before her and asks her to stop. Teela had not foreseen the cursed blade to entrap her so fast. Adora is livid on hearing that the blade is cursed. Seriously, Teela, you gave the woman the blade as a token of love and it was cursed? Did you even think about the kind of message that sends? Jeez. When Teela reveals that the sword was used to kill Grayskull, Adora demands an explanation as to why she gave it to her despite knowing that it would drive her mad. Teela explains explains that fate is complex, which sounds honestly a lot like I don't know. But all is not lost yet, as Teela has a plan. The way Grayskull died is almost identical to the way Adam was killed. When Grayskull's blood was shed, it ran down to the ancient ruins on the throne room and activated them. It then opened a secret door. Saryn followed the door to the Forge of Grayskull and found the second sword King Randor had forged, the Sword of Protection. While the Sword of Power was made to defeat Hordak, the Sword of Protection was made to protect Eternia if the Sword of Power ever reached the wrong hand. When Saryn saw the sword, she picked it up, hoping to one day give it to the child Adi had promised she would have, the little savior of Eternia. Saryn had fled into Anwat Gar with the sword and hid it from everyone. Meanwhile, Adi was triumphant and ushered in an age of terror on Eternia. Not for long though, as the only surviving son of Grayskull mounted a resistance and overthrew him. When they found Adi's dead body, they saw only his husk. Not surprising considering what you and I know. Saryn was never located, and while Grayskull's son recovered the power sword, nobody knew about the second sword. Saryn still held it in a cave where she lived on as an immortal monster, cursed by the blood she had spilled. Teela tells her that Adora is meant to wield the Sword of Protection and gives her the difficult task of getting the sword from the insane witch. Adora doubts herself as she thinks she is no less of a monster as she killed Adam. Teela comforts her as the cursed sword brings out the worst in people, and the worst of Adora is Despara. Teela assures her that the wheels of destiny are in motion, and the sword she killed He-Man with would lead her to the Sword of Protection. Adam cannot find it in herself to trust Teela as she blames her for Adam's death. Teela tells her that it is not too late to save him, as the Sword of Protection has the power to heal him. Adora agrees to do it only to save Adam and tells her that she doubts that she will ever trust Teela again. She accuses her of using her as a means to an end and tells her that she will never forgive herself nor forgive Teela again. As Adora leaves on Swiftwind, a tear escapes Teela's eye. Teela reaches a cave that is emitting red light and realizes she is at the house of Saryn. She leaves the unicorn outside and wears Hordak's mask before entering, as she wants Saryn to fear her. At the entrance of the cave, there is a pool of red liquid, and right across it is where the Sword of Protection rests. As her eyes find the sword, Saryn rises from the pool and attacks Adora, declaring that the blood of Grayskull will fall once again. Adora comes to her as Despara and tells her that she will fear her. A brutal fight ensues, and all the while the witch harps on about how the sword belongs to her child, and Adora is just a thief. The cursed sword Adora wielded was connected to Saryn and had told her all of Adora's secrets. So the witch hits her where it hurts. She tells her how both of them are destroyers of Grayskull's legacy, and that her garb shows her true allegiance. The witch grabs her by the throat, lifts her up, and throws her down so hard that her mask breaks and her face bleeds. Adora thinks it best that the mask is torn off, as she refuses to live a lie any longer. The throw had also dislodged the locket from Adora's neck, which is now in the witch's hand. Adora tries to get it back by attacking Saryn ferociously, while the witch insults her mother. She asks Adora what her mother did to help her destiny, and Adora tells her that nobody gets to dictate her destiny but her. She declares that she chooses Grayskull, and the sword, which had been waiting eons to hear those words, sets the witch's hand on fire. Adora finishes the job by shoving the sword deep into her chest. The witch burns away, and the cursed sword disappears. When Adora holds the hilt of the Sword of Protection, the words she must say comes to her, as if she has said them for years. She lifts it up in the air and announces the words, "For the honor of Grayskull, I am She-Ra." Thus, a new protector is made for Eternia, and Adora receives a new white and golden armor with a crown befitting a princess. Nearby, the witch remembers her son in her dying moments, knowing that he will live on. Adora rushes over to Adam as swiftly as possible with the help of Swiftwind, and places the hilt of the sword on his chest. The sword begins to glow, and Adam wakes up. Adam is confused as all heck, and I would be too if my short-haired twin sister killed me, and she was the one who revived me. But she had a makeover and has really long hair and an awesome outfit. Adora does not have time to clear up Adam's confusion though, as the Fright Zone is advancing really quickly, and they have work to do. The two summon the power of Grayskull and obliterate the Fright Zone. The Gars bow to Adam and thank him for saving them. Adam asks them to get up as they have suffered for too long and are hence broken. He declares that Anwat Gar is no longer forbidden anymore. Adora admires her brother and tells him that he never changes. Adam, on the other hand, notes all the changes in his sister and knows that they have a lot to talk about. Castle Grayskull, which was once the epicenter of Eternia and the sacred stronghold of He-Man and the heroic masters of the universe, is now the shallow heart of a dark universe. A projection of Hordak's face greets Triclops as he hands over the vial containing Adam's blood. That causes a sinister smile to grace Hordak's face, as he now has everything he needs to free himself from Despondos and seize the secrets of the castle. a story of what happened to prepare for what's to come. Now that you know She-Ra's story, let's take a look at what made Adam as he too prepared for the battle of a lifetime. Our story begins on a perfect morning. A young Adam gets his first kiss from Teela and she reacts with disgust. Teela had dared Adam to kiss her, but now she has a different story as she claims she does not kiss boy. The two kids banter joyfully when an envoy led by Duncan stops by them. He tells Adam that he is heading over to resolve a trade dispute between the people of the Adrenid and the Avion. Duncan is joined by the Masters of the Universe, and the sight of them amazes the young prince. He darts over to his father and asks his permission to accompany them as he wants to observe and learn. Randor says no, as he is just a boy. Keldor, Adam's uncle and then mentor, asks Randor to let him go as it is time for him to become a man. Randor stays adamant. Though he is happy that his son is showing interest in state affairs, the negotiations are too dangerous for him. Adam, encouraged by Keldor, tells Randor that he wants to be a master. Randor gives him a lecture about the history and glory of their kingdom and asks him whether he really thinks he has the mettle to join their ranks when he spends his time racing hoverboards and chasing Teela. He asks him how he dares to consider becoming a master of the universe when he has never learnt to master himself. The criticism is too much for the young prince and he runs away crying. Later, Keldor finds him and consoles him, telling him that Randor is stubborn and one day his father will see the greatness Keldor sees in him. Adam is not even sure Randor sees him, let alone acknowledge his potential. Keldor can relate to that feeling of invisibility and shares his story with Adam. Keldor and Randor were half-siblings and they only shared the same father. One day, King Miro's ship had crashed upon the shores of Anwat Gar, and a Gar woman had rescued them. She healed him and loved him. By the time rescue came for Miro, she bore him a son, Keldor. Keldor's mother knew she would never be accepted in the kingdom of Miro, so she asked Miro for one thing only, to bring up Keldor as a descendant of Grayskull and return him to her when he was of age. Keldor thought that his father considered him a sign of his shame, as he was a child born out of wedlock from a woman who was considered subhuman. Miro never let Keldor go to Anwat Gar. Adam is shocked to know all this about his uncle. Keldor tells him that he shared all that to stress how alike they are. They are both invisible princes. Since they are such kindred spirits, Adam expects Keldor to understand what he wants to do: sneak away to the negotiations to prove Randor wrong. Keldor asks him not to do that as it is too dangerous, but Adam insists. In half an hour, he leaves the palace and reaches Zarkane on Keldor's sky sled, where Beastman waits with his men as per Keldor's orders to capture him. Keldor, the perfect double agent, then waits for Randor to get the news of his son's sneaky adventure. As soon as Randor finds out, he blames himself for being too harsh on his son and leaves immediately to find him. He asks Keldor to head the High Council, who poisons every one of the High Council members with the help of Evil Lyn. Meanwhile, Adam is attacked by Beastman's battalion, but Randor appears just in time on an Eternian aircraft. Beastman jumps on the aircraft, breaks the glass to pull out the pilot, and throws him down. The aircraft crashes and traps Randor beneath a heavy part of the aircraft's tail. Adam, blaming himself for the mishap, jumps to Randor's rescue and tries to lift the tail up. Randor, who sees Beastman about to jump onto his son, asks him to run away immediately and save himself. Adam refuses to leave, and his sheer will to save his father helps him unknowingly tap into the power of eternity. Time pauses completely, changing destiny itself. Randor, who was supposed to die in the crash, survives thanks to Adam unknowingly stopping time as the medic now reaches in time. Zodak, concerned about the sudden change in fate, summons the Sorceress to the scene when Adam stopped time. Adam is holding the tail stubbornly, the king struggling beneath and Beastman lunging from behind him. Zodak suggests killing the boy as he has way too much power than a single man should. The Sorceress does not agree, as the death of his love and humanity is what is going to save Eternia. Zodak takes that to mean that the Sorceress thinks he is the prophesied one who will be the heir to Grayskull's power. He decides to make an exception for Adam and looks the other way. The Sorceress, not visible to anybody, places a gentle kiss on Adam's cheek and promises to grant him the greatest power of Eternia one day. They leave the prince to his fate, and with the magic words that one day will define him, Adam lifts the tail up. Wasn't that a tale worthy of a hero? She-Ra did not have the cushy upbringing of Adam, nor did she get the loving mentorship of an uncle, a father, and Duncan. She was brought up in Despondos under the watchful eye of Shadow Weaver and the brutal, uncaring, unloving, demanding gaze of Hordak. But when she found out the truth of the matter, the conditioning she had been given since childhood, she deserted her name and who she was. She was no longer Despara. That could not have been an easy journey, but her decision itself is what makes her worthy and capable of the power of Grayskull. I really loved this comic book. My favorite elements were the friendship of Adora and Teela, their jibes at each other, and their teasing, the reveal of King Hiss, and what that means for Adam, and the exact moment when Adora became She-Ra. I wonder how Adora and Teela's relationship will heal now that Adora thinks she used her. I really hope the girls make it up with each other. As wise men have said, true love is rare, but rarer still is true friendship. The favoritism of the Sorceress sickens me though. Teela Na did not care for her own daughter, nor did she bother rescuing Adora, but Adam always had her full attention, just because he was the chosen one. Right. Anyway, what did you think of this He-Man and the Masters of the Universe? Let me know in the comments below, and if you liked the video, you know what to do. Tap that thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, and share it with all and sundry. Alright, I will be back with more stuff, but for now, goodbye, take care, and by the power of Grayskull, you have the power!